Welcome back, my friends. Today I'm going to be making the Amazon's Gorgonzola penne pasta. This is a dish that Luffy is served right before leaving the Amazon lily. It's an island full of women and they decided to give him a massive feast before he had left. And it's a good thing Sanji was not there. This dish is actually a very simple recipe and it can be found in the official Sanji cookbook. The problem is that it does differ quite a bit from what you see in the manga or the anime. The Amazon lilies had mentioned they had used sea king meat for this pasta dish, but in the official book, it does use ham and bacon or pancetta to make this pasta, which doesn't really make a lot of sense for sea king meat. So to start things off, I'm going to boil a ton of these jumbo shelled pastas. You can find these anywhere. I picked these up at my local grocery store, and I'm just gonna be boiling these in some really nicely salted water while I prep everything else, because by the time this is done, we should be done with making our sauce. The sea king meat that I mentioned earlier is actually going to be some really nice tuna that I had picked up locally. We have this really great fishmonger that does sell tuna, which is really awesome, so I was able to get that from him. If you can't find tuna locally, that's okay. You can just use the bacon or pancetta. Now the sauce is relatively simple. For aromatics, I'm using some diced onion, and honestly, I actually want this onion to be really nicely minced. This way it kind of dissolves into the sauce versus being super chunky. So I'm gonna give this quite a bit of a chop. We're gonna be here for about a minute. Now, once your onion starts to look like this should be good enough for the sauce. The rest of it is really straightforward. Grab yourself a nice sized skillet. I'm just using this medium saute pan for the sauce. Throw in about a tablespoon of butter. You can also just use olive oil if you want, but I figure we're using so many fats, just add some more butter. While the butter is melting, if you're doing the pasta at one time, or at the same time, I should say, make sure you're just keeping an eye on it. Now, before that butter is fully melted, this is where I'm going to put in all of my onions and start cooking these. To the onions, I'm adding in 2 whole cloves of garlic, and I'm putting this into a garlic press. If you don't have a garlic press, you can just chop them up and throw them in too. Start sauteing up your onions. This is on a pretty medium-high heat, almost to fully high heat on this. But what I really don't want to do is add a ton of color to this. Otherwise, your nice white-ish gorgonzola sauce will be a little bit dark. I'm going to add just a pinch of salt to this, not too much, because the cheeses we're going to add are salty. Adding in just a touch of black pepper as well, and we will have to season this again, so just keep that in mind. Oh no, come back. Now I'm actually going to deglaze this with some of that pasta water. You could also use white wine if you like white wine or if you can have wine. I'm just using the pasta water because it's available and I don't have any white wine. Now the next bit of liquid is super simple. I have 1/2 cup of milk. This is just regular old whole milk, and a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. This is where a lot of the body is going to come from. This stuff is super rich, so I wouldn't recommend using just straight up whole cream here. Now this does have to come up to a simmer before we add our cheeses to this. Now, once it starts doing this, you know it's pretty much ready to have the cheese added to it. Just don't walk away from this. That's a mistake. To this, I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of gorgonzola. This is what gives it that really distinct cheesy blue cheese flavor. We're gonna melt this directly in, and this should thicken up the sauce. Mine does look a little wet, but I have a little bit more cheese over here on the side, and that's a bit of Parmesan, but that's meant to finish the pasta dish with. So if this doesn't thicken up, we can just add a little bit of cornstarch slurry and it'll be okay. The problem with adding too much gorgonzola is that it's a very strong cheese, so if you add too much, it just kind of takes over all of the flavor and probably take over my kitchen if I spill this everywhere. I'm going to reduce this down to a simmer and cook it for about 3 or 4 minutes until it thickens up. And because we can multitask, I'm actually going to move this sauce over the stove and keep it nice and like medium low, keeping an eye on it while we sear off our fish. This way, everything is done at the same time. This is kind of how I would just cook in a restaurant. You know, you have to do multiple things at once. The tuna is just going to be seasoned with a bit of salt, making sure you get enough on each side, as well as a few cracks of black pepper right on top. You can omit this if you don't want any more pepper, but I like pepper on my fish. I'm throwing in just a splash of oil into the pan. You don't really want too much. And that pan is gonna be pretty ripping hot because what we're doing is we're actually just searing this very lightly. We don't actually want to cook this tuna through. I feel like cooking tuna any more than rare is pretty much a waste. I only say that because I care about your pocketbook. If you don't enjoy rare tuna, I would just recommend using something like bacon or pancetta. Way cheaper, and it's probably going to taste better to you. I'm just seasoning both sides. Remember, we had only seasoned the front earlier, or I guess whatever the front of this fish would have been. This has been searing for all of 30 seconds. I'm going to give it a flip, and that's about as much time as I'm going to sit here in this pan. Also, best practice is to make sure when you're doing tuna, you pull it out of the fridge and then immediately sear it. This way the center is still nice and cold and it doesn't really have a chance of cooking. I'm turning off this pan. That was all we were doing. Grab a plate with a little paper towel, and we're going to place this right onto here so the cooking process stops. And that's it. That's our tuna. And what's great is by now our pasta should be done. I'm gonna bring it over so we can check on it. These beautiful boys look ready to go. I'm gonna remove these from the water, making sure we keep some of this liquid. We're going to need it to finish off this pasta. If you're eating this right away, feel free to not put this into an ice bath. You can just keep the pasta warm because it's gonna be done in a few minutes. But if you're gonna have this like a day from now, a couple of hours from now, if you're trying to impress your favorite dinner guest like Dami, you probably wanna cool that down. I'm gonna take my little container that just had my residue of my cheese in there. I'm gonna pour some very careful, actually, I'm gonna do this over here. Very carefully pour out some of this pasta water. We don't need all of it. We just need some of it. And then dump out the rest. And by now, this Gorgonzola sauce looks really, really good. It's still a little thin, but that's okay because I'm gonna add in the rest of that cheese. To mix this bad boy up, I'm gonna transfer this to here. This is just gonna give me more room to work with so I can get all that pasta in there. And then I'm just gonna drop my pasta straight in. There's a little bit of water at the bottom of this bowl, so I'm just gonna try to be careful to not put that in because I wanna see how wet this looks. Lucian, what are you doing? Why are you attacking a blanket, sir? Yeah, you. I'm watching you. Now it is time to basically finish this thing up. This already looks so freaking good. I actually don't think I need much of that pasta water. I'm gonna continue to cook this, and then we're gonna take a bit of our shredded Parmesan, put this right onto here. This is gonna be so freaking good. Look at these pasta shells, man. That's ridiculous. Now remember, you do wanna give this a taste. Make sure it has enough salt, pepper, whatever else you wanna put in there. That's good. That's good. Needs literally nothing else. It's so simple, so good. Remember, the better the cheese, the better the sauce. Well, in this case anyways. Oh God, just burned myself. I think the move, even though this is like 2 portions worth, is to just put all of it in here. We're just gonna put every single little bit into this bowl. There's so much pasta. That sauce came out beautifully, if I do say so myself, and it took like literally no time. I think we spent 21 minutes according to the camera. Now before we top this with tuna, a little bit more black pepper right on top. Look at this bowl just as is. You don't even need the tuna. Don't even want the tuna, but I definitely want the tuna. I'm gonna cut this up to where maybe it looked like it in the manga and the anime and just slice this into nice chunky cubes. I don't know if I would serve it like that, to be honest, but we're just gonna go for it. This is what you want your tuna to look like. See that? Little sear on the outside, nice and pink in the middle. It's actually really pretty. Arrange this the best that you can. They actually eat quite a bit of tuna in one piece. There's another, hi Gandalf, I know I said tuna and you showed up. There's another recipe that I really want to try, and it's when Nami makes one of Sanji's recipes, and that also uses tuna. So probably should have bought more tuna. This is yours. You can't have it yet. I gotta show everybody. No, get your hand out of here. And that, my friends, is the Amazon Lily Neptunian Gorgonzola pasta from One Piece. Super easy to put together. Again, this took us now a total of about 25 minutes to make. But honestly, if you make the pasta ahead of time, you can make the cheese sauce ahead of time because that'll hold up really well. You can throw everything together for a dinner party or have it later in the day, and it's gonna be just as good. The one thing is you'll just have to sear off the fish when you wanna eat that, or serve it with steak. Honestly, this will go really well with just some really nicely grilled chicken breasts too. Now, it's time to dig in like Luffy. No, we're not. That's a Gandalf job. I want to try the pasta just on its own. That's what it looks like. The sauce held up really, really well all over the pasta. Not super wet. There's a little bit pulling at the bottom, and my mouth is watering, so cheers. That's fantastic. I don't know what you want me to say. It's creamy. You get a little bit of sweetness from the onions. Touch of the garlic comes through. The Gorgonzola tastes beautiful in this. You get a little bit of the Parmesan as well. A little bit of nuttiness behind it. Black pepper on top is great. Let's try a piece of the tuna by itself. Cheers. When I bought that from the fish guy, he said it was sushi grade. I believe him. It wasn't cheap. It was about $8 a pound for that, but it's fantastic. It literally is sushi grade. Now, the one thing I'm curious about is how it tastes together. So I'm gonna take a piece of fish. I'm gonna take one of these shells. This is the bite. Cheers. Yeah, that works. Don't ask me why, but that works. Thank you to my amazing, too much. Thank you to my amazing patrons who helped support this channel. If you want to be part of the Patreon community, check out patreon.com/chefpk. For as little as $5 a month, you can join our members-only Discord section. And for some of the higher tiers, you might get a special gift when you find me at a convention. I like to do convention meetups and give stuff to you guys when I arrive, like these custom devil fruits. So if you really want to support what we do here on the channel, the best way to do that is patreon.com/chefpk. I'd love to see you guys over there, and I can't wait to give you something awesome. My name is Chef PK, and remember, keep playing with your food. Gandalf, come here. You have to disappear too.